Hello and welcome to another video by Tiny Mushroom. This is a video in our series Let's Talk Video Games, and we're going to be looking back at the life of the 3DS now that it's coming to a bit of a crescendo. Do you think it's dead yet?
Not quite. Nintendo's quite sure that they want to push releases into 2018, and we're still getting pretty big games.
Yeah,
like
it's attracting big IPs.
Yeah, we've just got a new Metroid game for it, so it's not quite dead yet, but I think we're definitely reaching like the mature end now. You know, we're no longer in the golden years. We'll be lucky to have like a truly great game for it, like every 3 or 4 months or so now.
Well, that would be nice. I'd be lucky. The last truly great game I think was Shovel Knight, which was quite a long time ago.
That's not even a 3DS game though, really, is it?
You know, it's coming to an end. But in this video, we're going to go through the ups and downs, the initial inception, which was a bit dodgy, and then up to that amazing year that it had right in the middle of its life cycle. So let's get to it.
This console worried me at first. So when I first saw this reaction, like I was expecting, like, what's the next big successor to the DS going to be? Like this really, really pivotal, revolutionary handheld device. How are they going to follow it up? And they followed it up by taking the really, especially at the time, overused and boring idea of 3D, because that was around the same time when 3D films became big again.
You could literally, on the DVD aisle, you'd have 3D and Blu-ray next to the same film.
Yeah.
And you think how big Blu-ray's gone now, and 3D's just gone. Even 3Ds are phasing out now.
I know, yeah. So that made me think, oh, they're just sort of chasing a trend, and you shouldn't trace trends with consoles, especially.
Especially when Nintendo was so innovative. But what they did do with the 3D, they made it so that you didn't need glasses, which was a huge, mind-boggling selling point at that time. Like, our tiny minds could not comprehend how this worked, and our tiny minds could not even use it because it hurt so much. The headaches were just ridiculous.
Our mere human brains couldn't handle the raw power of the 240 pixel screen.
I'm having a headache now thinking of the headaches. I mean, okay, so Nintendo, really innovative company.
Yeah.
The GameCube, a little lunchbox console that you could carry around, brilliant. The Wii with its motion controls hadn't been done to that accuracy before. Doesn't even need to be mentioned. But
not really.
The Switch is ridiculous in that handheld and that console thing, and you know they're allowed to have an off day. I think on the 3DS.
They had a couple off days because the Wii U followed as well.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, they had an off couple of years. Anyway,
Yeah.
so the 3D didn't work as planned. It looked brilliant, but only some people could use it. And to be honest, the games and the actual power of the console make up for that for me.
The power of the console?
I'm not talking about like a Yu-Gi-Oh reference here. I'm literally talking about the step up from
like,
the DS.
I was going to say, because it is like a powerful console anyway. I mean, at the time this was going up against the Vita, which is quite literally just like a really great handheld device in itself, in terms of just graphics and in terms of what it can do. You know, OLED screen, touch screens at the front and back, dual analog sticks. When you look at it from a hardware perspective, there's absolutely nothing that stands toe to toe with the 3DS, but at the same time, hardware doesn't, generate sales.
Yeah, I mean, normally Nintendo go lower sort of power hardware wise, so they can make sure their own games, which are generally underpowered, work on the system.
Mm-hmm.
But this one allowed third parties to come to the console with a much more realistic proposition, because at that time, as with any time, games are increasing in the CPU that they require.
So this didn't get off to the best start, sad to say, and especially coming off the DS is like blew everything else out of the water in terms of handheld sales. It came out and our poor little dumb brains got fried to death. And joking aside, that's the first thing I remember hearing about the 3DS. I didn't get this on release day, and I got too concerned thinking this console is literally painful.
It was partly to do with the initial price, which I think in the UK was about 200 quid, something like that.
I think a bit more than that, but that's
you can buy a PlayStation 3 or PlayStation 4 rather for that now quite easily with a few games. So it put a lot of people off, but within 6 months that got slashed, and so it became a much more desirable proposition because you knew that you weren't buying it for the 3D at that time. You were just buying a good console.
The price really was a huge sticking point, so much so that when Nintendo actually announced the price cut, they had to reward all of the first-time buyers in the Ambassador program. To this day, you still can't get some of those games they gave the ambassadors.
Generally, there's some absolute belters in there.
You cannot. I would love.
Like, was Minish Cap in there and things like that? Just
I
like,
would love to play Minish Cap on my 3DS so much.
So one of the main disappointments for the initial step of the console for me wasn't just the 3D point of it. It was actually that one of my favourite game franchises in Pokemon released at pretty much the same time with Pokemon Black and White on the DS. So what's up with that? Why would such a big company not develop for the new Nintendo console when they've got such an affiliation? That basically ruined my view of Pokemon Black and White, even though they're such... You love them, and I know you can check out our Pokemon video at the bottom in the description. But it just ruined it for me because it wasn't what I expected. It was just these little 2D sprites, a few pixels long, and what I wanted was what came along in X and Y.
Well, yeah, we can debate that for a long time, but I get what you mean. Yeah, they tried to sort of do the 3D thing in like the big city, the New York style city. I can't remember what it's called. And then when Black and White 2 came out, there was an additional app called the Dream Radar where you could use the VR. Did you ever use those games? You know, the ones where you had to like fucking tilt round and hold your console like
that
it
was
did
so
you.
cool. It's like you were like, that's pretty. Like I know it gets a bad rap, but those mini games were pretty cool. If you compare them to like the Wii mini games and that sort of thing, they were genuinely really good use of the 3D. Stop laughing. Like for a good 10 minutes, that was a good free thing to have. And it showcased the 3D. Unfortunately, that was the best 3D got.
Yeah, I was gonna say like it sounded like you were gonna talk about like these are really really fun games. I'm still playing them.
These AAA titles.
I'm still playing the one where you shoot people's faces down in the helicopters to this day. The lineup wasn't exactly great. I mean, one of the release games for it was Super Mario 3D Land, which still is a great game and holds up well. And if you're going to get a Mario game for the 3DS, that's probably the one I'd say to get. It's just fairly box standard Mario, really.
To have such a difficult initial release with a Mario title on there as well really says something about what they had planned for that year, because it really wasn't a lot. It was very barren, to be quite honest, until that absolutely stellar 12 months where there was like game after game after game that almost everybody had to buy. Let's
quickly just talk about the 3DS launch lineup. Now, nowadays I don't think the launch lineup is as important as it was, but it's still meant to quite be. You know, this is also in the midst of the headaches and the price and all that sort of stuff. So on launch day of 3DS, you've got Super Street Fighter 4, The Sims 3, Pilot Wings Resort, Pets 2011, Lego Star Wars 3, Super Monkey Ball 3D, Rayman 3D, Ridge Racer 3D, Asphalt 3D, Dinosaur 3. You can get the idea.
Yeah, there's all for about 40 quid. So pretty much you're waiting for that Mario game to come out. And then what happened in this stellar year that we had? What actually came out then?
We got some ridiculously good games. And yeah, some of them are still classified as ports or like remakes or reimaginings or so. But we got a bunch of system sellers. And for a long time, this actually managed to continue on well into, I'd say, 2015. We got Super Mario 3D Land, Mario Kart 7, Luigi's Mansion 2. I mean,
that was so anticipated and so surprising.
I know, that alone. Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D, great port as well. We got Animal Crossing New Leaf, Pokemon X and Y, and Fire Emblem Awakening.
Like, what more can you say for a console? You can forgive it 5 years of barren games for that lineup, to be quite honest.
The price drop, along with those games, just sent this console to the stratosphere for me. I mean, the moment I decided to turn around to it was when I saw the trailer for Pokemon X and thought,
okay.
This was back when I was on my massive Pokemon high. I'd just completed all of the games again.
So you couldn't have wished for anything more out of this game, really, from that trailer?
Not really, no. I was like, okay, then I'm ready. You know, I've got a reason to justify getting this console. Then I got Fire Emblem Awakening.
Wow, what a game. Honestly, you lent me this game from just a pure recommendation point of view, and it blew my mind. I've never played Fire Emblem before, and this just got me on the series. Like, it got me on that series hype train so much. It's absolutely brilliant.
Top 5 game for me ever.
Wow.
Ever. I couldn't
on this
believe
little thing, on this little tiny thing.
No, like I've already ordered my Crom Amiibo. I'm waiting for that to. I can't wait for Fire Emblem Warriors. I can't wait to get like Birthright and Conquest as well. I'd like to have got them sooner.
All just from this one game, which is it's at the face of it, it's relatively simple, sort of movement-based combat. Yet it uses the system and its positive points from that in its like low power portability, and it's still, the colours on the screen look brilliant. The touchscreen works really well in that game. Uses all the assets just to create an absolutely stellar line.
Exactly, and even with all the games that I've got for it since then, I still think it's up there with it. Yeah, Pokemon X came out, and we've already talked about our thoughts on Pokemon X, so we're not going to make them redundant anymore. But then more games kept on coming out. We got the sequel to Luigi's Mansion, which we really wanted for a long time. We got some great installments from the Kirby series as well.
That's quite overlooked, to be honest with you.
Yeah, Kirby's had a very solid run on the 3DS, actually.
I want to talk about now is how much of a fan you are of the ports coming onto this console. Because for us who weren't growing up in the NES and the SNES era, great. But for a lot of other people, it seems like a money-grabbing technique, really.
You know, it really was, I must hate to say it, because there's two sides of these ports, really. You've got I'm going to sort of class it right now, you've got like the Ocarina of Time and Star Fox 64 kind of ports where, oh, look, here are two really big titles, let's move them over to here because they've got that iconic status to them. But then you've got, on the other side, I'd say the Donkey Kong and the Majora's Mask ones where we don't have to do this because they're lesser titles. You know, Donkey Kong even is a lot more recent title. People, that's still very memorable to them. But they want to bring it over for certain reasons. You know, it would either benefit from that portability aspect of it, or it gives the chance for them to fix some things. Like, if I just talk about Majora's Mask for a moment, this is a good example of a remake of what the 3DS can do because it fixes problems with the original.
Oh, okay.
First of all, graphically, it looks great. You know, it uses that sort of cartoony art style. It doesn't need to be in HD. You know, it's the art style carries it through to from beginning to end. It fixes the structure of the game because the 3D mechanic can be quite pressuring, especially when you're like sitting down in front of a TV and you know that you have to be a dungeon in X amount of time. Because it's a handheld and it's a portable device, you could even just put it into sleep mode. That alleviates a lot of the pressure of the game.
Stops the cycle.
Yeah,
Putting it there.
essentially pauses the game. So you can just be like, right, that's it. No need to quick save. You can save at any given time, whereas in the original it used to be a quick save. When you want to time travel, you can skip to certain points rather than just have the default morning, noon, night.
See, that seems like it's catering to the modern gamer who isn't used to the older games. If we think of, just as an example, Tetris. You can't beat Tetris.
You can't really get much older than that unless we're talking about Pong.
You can't beat Tetris. The whole point of it is to survive as long as possible, and then it's game over. So from that, you're going on to the old Nintendo consoles, which were very similar in their difficulty, but yet had a story behind it, so therefore you could finish the game. Now we're putting those games onto a new console, which is catering to the gamer who needs this quick save option, who needs to be able to have an easier time of it, basically, and has to have some reward at the end. And so I think that's quite clever of them to do that, because there's such a difference between sort of 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds and people in their teenage years in what sort of games they like to play and what they remember playing. So I think this is a really smart move of changing that mechanic to make it easier, but it could grind people up the wrong way who played it before. But I think that this was probably sold mostly to people who hadn't played it before.
Yeah, I'm in a bit of a weird position because I didn't grow up with the original, but I've played the original like on my virtual console a lot. So much so that I've got 2 save files on there, which are like 20 hearts, all masks, 100% completed. Because I know the game back to forth, I sort of played in my own style. Like I enjoyed having those little things that made the game easier because they were annoyances at the end of the day. It's a game that needed this kind of treatment for it, and it's the definitive way to play it.
Is that you're a relatively young gamer? Is that just you being used to having a fairly easy time of it, and therefore it's an annoyance rather than a challenge?
Parts of it get... I'll put it like this. I know the game back and forth right now. I know what time events are going to occur. It is annoying having to wait for some of those things and having no other choice other than sitting there waiting for something that I know I can do first time. I know for a fact I'll be able to do the shooting aliens in the bar minigame. I know for a fact how to do the Cat and June Cafe side quest. I know all that sort of stuff. Having to sit there and wait for it isn't fun.
Okay, fair. So it's not necessarily changing difficulty, it's changing the accessibility of certain things. That's a good thing.
The other game that I got really early on was Animal Crossing New Leaf.
Oh my god, did you have a life when you even played that? Were you just like, need to go fish, need to farm?
Like, I just got this, I think, to... Yeah, we have some games where you just buy them because they're quite cheap at the time and you're just waiting for another game to come out a few months in the line.
Triforce Heroes was my version of that. That's enough said.
Not a fan, are you?
No.
I've got New Leaf just to be like, I've heard a lot of good buzz around it and a couple of my friends have got it. I think that this is the video game equivalent of just pure addiction.
Yeah, it's like Farmville.
It's It's like Farmville on steroids.
Yeah.
Because you have all these like...
Not mechanically, obviously, we know.
And you have just like these such nice, lovable characters, and the music's so nice, and you just want to live there. It's like... I mean, I'm a
Then you look up from your screen and it's all bleak around you, and you go back into your screen and it's happy.
Like, I mean, especially from a former World of Warcraft guy, like, games this addicting don't come around very often. No. And yeah, my poor village is like full of cockroaches and fallen leaves. And
why aren't you playing it now then?
I need to help them.
So the main point of that, I think, is it's attracting really good IPs at that point in time. And it's, as we said, it's still doing that now with the Metroid Samus Returns. So really, it's gone through a barren spell at the beginning, but from the middle of its life to now, it's fairly good in what it's releasing. Another game it released, which was mainly for the Wii U, was Smash Brothers.
Just the fact you can play, yeah, you can say it's a bit gimped because it doesn't have that true second analog stick, and the graphics aren't up to as par ever. But you can play a version of Smash Brothers on your 3DS.
Ever since it came out when I played it on the GameCube, that is exactly what you wanted, was this portable fighting game with Nintendo characters, and it just delivers on every front. You can forgive it for the controller issues, and sometimes the screen is a bit too small to see. Literally, 4 characters on that is quite difficult sometimes, but just to have the opportunity to do that is brilliant.
I just couldn't believe when the game came out, there was people who just completely broken their analog stick.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost like they got a knife and just popped it off. It was ridiculous.
But the movement in that game is so frenetic. So it's probably not designed for this console. It'd probably work better on the Wii U, but just to have that accessibility, again, demonstrates the sheer versatility of this console.
Speaking about the new 3DS, this console's been under quite a few iterations. Started off with the original 3DS, the standard one. Did you ever get a go on that? I
did. It was very small.
Yeah.
To definitively play games on this console, I think you need the XL version, which is this version here. So just as a comparison to like my hand, that's a fairly sizable screen to play these sort of portable games on.
Well, my friends got the 3DS more or less launch month, I want to say, and within a month or so, he was like, I hate this thing because it's so small, and it was very rectangular as well. He said he got quite bad hand cramps while he was playing all of the great games for it that came out in the first few weeks or so. Then the XL came out, and it's a lot better for us. I mean, we're quite big guys, so like we need that bit of extra support as well. Then later down the line, they announced the 2DS, which had the slate design, like almost like a doorstop design.
Yeah, I used to see a lot of these sort of consoles in like Toys R Us or something like that. That were never Nintendo. They just had this little rubbish game on there for kids. And Nintendo have just made that a really good version of the 3DS now in a 2D version, because people, like children, that's probably a bit too much cost-wise to give to a kid. And so to have this little 2D slate thing, which is probably very versatile in terms that it's not going to get damaged easily and it's made of hard-wearing materials, for that sort of generation, I think is really good. And now they've released that new 2DS XL, which is great for us because it gets rid of that 3D headache that we don't want to have to deal with, and therefore the increase in price that comes with it. And I'm really tempted now to get that because that's a decent price, to be honest.
Yeah, to be honest, when they announced the new 3DS line, I sort of scratched my head and thought, what are they trying to do here? Then they said we're going to be offering like exclusive games for it. To this day, I still think Xenoblade Chronicles is the only exclusive game for it. I'm sure there's other ones, but I can't remember at all. It seems to be like we're going through a trend where we have like the PS4 Pro or the Xbox Scorpio, that sort of thing, where we're having mid-cycle releases. But at the same time, I sort of want to get a new 3DS because I've got a load of Smash Brothers amiibo that are just sort of sitting there.
You don't want to buy the little thing, yeah.
No, yeah, as very tempting as it is, and also the addition of the extra shoulder buttons and that little C stick, the little nub, that might make some games a bit more comfortable.
For Smash Bros, and it was designed mainly for Monster Hunter, which I think it will definitely work really well with, just because of the sheer scale of what's on the screen in that game.
I wouldn't say it's the definitive version of that because, like I said, we've gone through like how many years of playing on our 3DSs, and at no point have I thought I really would like another C stick. There's a few games on it, like Monster Hunter would benefit it. Kingdom Hearts 3D would benefit from it. I know for a fact Majora's Mask would really benefit from it as well, but like I've played that game to completion twice already, and I've never really thought this is unplayable because of the fact. So it's there, and if you're people like us who just love hoarding amiibo, yeah, it might be good if you've got Smash Bros 3DS, but otherwise I still think the 3DS XL is the definitive version for it.
Fine, yeah. but it's really competitive at the price point now, isn't it? The 3DS.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of telling me it's coming to the end of its life. So what do you see in the next 12 months? Are we seeing more of things like Simon's Returns where we're getting really good games for it that are prolonging it, or are we just going to see like a slow death?
I'm expecting a slow death, to be honest. I mean, Nintendo said they're supporting it in 2018. I can't really think of a game that's coming out for the 3DS at all, because now that the Switch is like this giant success story where their directs are, we're making Fire Emblem Warriors, we've made the Zelda, we've made a 3D Mario for it, we're doing this, we've got Metroid Prime 4 in development for it. I can't see that many great games coming out for the Switch. Like, yeah, we might get a few indies which come over, and some series like Fire Emblem and the Yokai Watch series, they'll probably still be on it because they found a nice little home for it. I'm expecting a slow death until Nintendo just comes out and says, this is the last Nintendo developed game for the 3DS. And I'd expect that probably within the first half of 2018. I would be very, very surprised if it gets support beyond that date.
I'd have to agree, except from maybe some third-party developers. We were slightly probably preemptive in what we were saying about it, the Switch killing it, since we've had a decent year this year. But we weren't far off, to be quite honest. 6 months, 12 months down the line, I think this is going to be it. And then we'll make another video with this as the flashback, saying we were wrong again.
Saying we were wrong again, they've announced the new model, which has...
The 3DS Giant. Thanks for watching today. So this is obviously part of our Let's Talk Video Games playlist. We've also got a Let's Talk Comics along the same sort of lines, and a classic gaming playlist where we just go over some really retro or just generally good games and have a play of those. Give us a like and a subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, I went to EGX on the week, and I thought maybe you might want to do the video with these on. Yeah? You're tall, so you want the Luigi one, and you look like kind of like a 70s porn star as well. So that one, I think that one suits you. But mine doesn't fit. Got a giant's head. Hello, and welcome to another video by Tiny Mushroom. Today we're going to be delving into the lifespan. The lifespan of the 3DS.